In the heat-scorched plains between the Tigris and Euphrates, where dust has buried more history than memory could ever preserve, clay tablets still whisper. Not loudly, not clearly, but insistently. They speak of sky chariots, of fire trails that cut across the firmament before wheels were ever known, of beings not born of soil or sun, but descending from stars, wrapped in metal skins, luminous with power. The Sumerians called them Anunna, those who came from above, not in dreams, but in arrival. For centuries, scholars labeled these lines as metaphor, the artistic breath of early imagination. But not all echoes fade. Some wait. In a cold chamber deep beneath the European Southern Observatory, an archive of stellar drift is quietly reprocessed. New filters are applied. Algorithms refined to compensate for solar interference and tectonic noise. What they find is unsettling. A correlation emerges. A sudden rise in ionospheric turbulence, rhythmic and localized, matching the recorded dates from the Sumerian calendar. Not once, not randomly, but in intervals. A researcher notes it in passing. A pattern in the sky, synchronous with dates etched in baked clay thousands of years ago. When the stars spoke, as the tablets put it, they left behind not just symbols but residue. Microwaves, particles, disturbances, and in the reconstructed magnetospheric layers, another anomaly takes shape. A brief thinning in Earth's electromagnetic shield, enough to allow deep solar radiation into upper atmospheres, enough to be visible to ancient eyes as a sky that flickered, as if the heavens blinked and opened. More tablets are examined. Their descriptions grow specific, not vague gestures to the divine, but sequential instructions. When to watch the skies, when the river lights will shiver, when the storm above will speak with no thunder. Atmospheric records from modern satellites run backward, align with disturbing accuracy. Even the predicted solar flare patterns match. The tablets speak of towers, ziggurats built to echo the sky. Scholars always assume they meant worship, but perhaps not. Perhaps they were calibration platforms, antennae in stone, not to send, but to listen. A cluster of minor glyphs, long thought ornamental, is digitally enhanced. Their placement across the surface of one broken slab matches the angles of the Pleiades as seen from Earth in 3200 BC. But here's the problem. Those glyphs weren't star representations. They were instructions. When the seventh flame bends, one line reads, "The watchers will descend again." Bends? Modern ionospheric sensors register a recent curvature in Earth's low-frequency band, subtle, soft, but real. Caused by what? Unknown. Perhaps nothing, or perhaps something familiar. A hypothesis forms. What if the myths weren't origin stories, but departure logs? Across ancient sites, in Anatolia, in the Zagros foothills, and along the Persian Gulf, carvings appear showing the same image. A circle, split with lines like spokes, hovering above bowed figures. Some call it the sun, others call it an idea, but one diagram stands apart. It shows the circle with trails, angled, streaked, descending. Underneath the words, "They left, not to die, but to return when the sky breaks its silence." A graduate researcher runs a quiet test, feeding that inscription into a stellar timing model using known radio burst intervals. The software hesitates, then suggests a date. So, is it coincidence? Pattern seeking? Or is it something older than language? A recurrence, buried not in mythology but memory? Perhaps we're asking the wrong question. The real mystery isn't why ancient people believed in sky gods. It's whether the sky gods ever left at all. In the scorched ridgelines of Western Australia, far from city light and radio static, a cave breathes memory. Not in air, but in stone. Its walls are inked in ochre and fire black. Lines etched deep by hands long returned to Earth. And there, among animal tracks and weather spirits, lie constellations. But not the constellations we know. One spiral mirrors the Orion belt, but inverted. Another shape, curved like a wave, aligns not with Earth's sky, but with the stars as seen from above the moon's far side. For generations, these were seen as spiritual art, dreaming tracks, visions of the sky passed down in ceremony. But an astrophysicist, cross-referencing deep sky patterns through AI-enhanced simulations, notices something strange. The stars in these paintings shouldn't have been visible from Earth at the time they were drawn. Not just misplaced, but horizon-blocked. Yet the angles match. He models orbital perspective shifts, lunar libration windows, and ancient axial tilt. One simulation, just one, renders the view of Earth's sky from lunar orbit 14,000 years ago. And the cave's patterns align. Exactly. The implications are unsettling. No telescope, no craft, and yet a memory, inscribed in cave pigment, traces the arcs of stars only visible from above Earth itself. The researcher doesn't call it proof, but he pauses because something is being passed forward. Not stories, but spatial knowledge. Precision, dreaming or not, the cave walls describe perspective, not myth, not metaphor. Viewpoint. Could memory stretch beyond the body? Could culture remember what no eye has seen? Linguists chime in. They note the symbolism of sky paths in Aboriginal oral tradition. Routes followed not just by ancestors, but spirits returning from the sky. Some songs refer to the quiet side of the moon, a phrase once believed poetic. But now, with reconstructed lunar topographies and cosmic microwave mapping, the topological references in those chants match terrain. Ridges, craters. One word even mimics the resonance of Mare Oriental, a cratered ring basin only visible by satellite until recent decades. Is this coincidence? Or is it memory echoing not through genes, but through geometry? Anthropologists suggest that ancient trance states, induced by isolation, silence, or rhythm, might connect minds across generations. Not telepathy, but entrainment, a cultural neural net, humming quietly beneath language. And if that's true, then perhaps the cave isn't a painting. It's a backup, a record of a view once held, not by earthbound eyes, but by something higher, and older, and still watching. In the dim glow of a university observatory's AI research lab, mythology meets mathematics. What begins as a comparative literature study takes a sharp detour when an astrophysicist is asked to visualize rhythms in ancient texts. Just as an experiment, the Mahabharata, the Epic of Gilgamesh, and fragments of the Popol Vuh are converted into number sequences. Chapter lengths, verse beats, line intervals. Patterns emerge. They expect mythic structure. Instead, they find prime intervals. Fibonacci sequences drift in and out of heroic journeys. Orbital ratios flicker inside divine genealogies. A repeat set of numerics, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13, repeats not just as poetic rhythm, but as positional math. The findings are dismissed as coincidence until a machine learning telescope array is fed the same sequence as a search filter. Just a test, just a filter, but the moment it's applied, the noise floor narrows. Buried in a deep space band near the Hydra cluster, a narrowband anomaly surfaces. Faint, non-repeating, but perfectly structured. One pulse, then silence, then another, at intervals that echo the same mythic numbers. It isn't music, it isn't code, it's presence. Spatially coherent, mathematically elegant, and previously ignored, because no one thought to read myth like a map. Now, the legends look different. Gilgamesh didn't just chase immortality. He traveled in arcs, on a journey laid out like a parallax orbit. The Popol Vuh's twin heroes didn't just face gods. They mirrored orbital duality, one descending, one returning, and the Mahabharata's divine weapon descriptions, once dismissed as metaphor for lightning or fire, aligned shockingly with descriptions of electromagnetic pulse. This isn't science fiction. These are patterns, recurring across oceans, cultures, millennia. One linguist proposes a term, narrative resonance encoding, the idea that myths didn't just tell stories, they encoded locations, bearings, markers. What if the point of myth was never to remember, but to be remembered? A beacon, not for us, for something looking for us. The more sequences they decode, the more the signal strengthens. It isn't responding, it's adjusting. Not intelligent, not emotional, just reactive. Like sonar, like searchlight, the possibility becomes undeniable. These stories may not be warnings. They may be responses, a signal we didn't know we sent, until something pointed back. We end not with a telescope, but with a calendar, one whose stone edges were carved by hands long gone, yet whose measurements continue to echo in spaceborne data. The Mayan long count cycle, the Vedic yugas, the Hopi prophecies of the fifth world. These systems of time were once mocked, dismissed as poetic numerology, ancient attempts to make sense of change. But in a quiet lab where orbital modeling and stellar drift converge, a scholar overlays these cycles with solar weather patterns and galactic orbital physics. And what she finds is symmetry. The end of a Mayan Bacton aligns with increased solar flux. A Vedic transition maps onto Earth's crossing of a magnetic fold in the heliosphere. The Hopi time of purification mirrors current disruptions in Earth's magnetopause and the strange, flickering instability of the solar wind's outer boundary. They are not precise. They are not mechanical, but they are close enough to disturb. It's not the dates that matter. It's the rhythm, a pulse behind history. One that humans, in the absence of satellites and sensors, once felt instead of measured. Across civilizations, these pulses appear in art, ritual, and prophecy. Serpent spirals in petroglyphs that mimic solar orbital motion. Temples aligned not to stars, but to stellar drift. These weren't calendars. They were clocks, not counting forward, but back. Because what if prophecy was never about prediction? What if it was a form of memory? The memory of another cycle, another sky, another ending already lived. And now, returning, the story closes not on certainty, but on alignment. A long-forgotten whisper beneath the modern world's roar. A possibility that humanity's future was once known. Not by science, but by silence. By stone, by stars,